This is the Dollemore Daily, and I'm Jesse Dollemore. Last night was a real bummer for Republicans. Kentucky, Ohio, Virginia, these off-cycle elections that took place that really were a harbinger of doom, not to be too overly dramatic about it. But they really signal, one, that I, toot my own horn here, was correct and am correct and tend to be correct about polling and the drama news cycle that gets created with these polls that say Democrats are in trouble, the country's turning conservative. And then those polls that I, in previous videos just this week, have claimed that were completely wrong and their methodology was wrong, were proved to be wrong. Republicans are getting worked at the polls, and largely because of the abortion issue. Largely, they're falling on their own sword. The ideology of oppression and stripping away constitutional rights. They celebrated when Roe was overturned. They were beside themselves with glee that their work had come to pass. And now, to keep going with the muddled metaphors, they're reaping what they sow. And in the wake of what took place last night, democracy in action, people voting, going to the polls to sound off about what they feel should be the governing system, what should be the policies that rule us. Conservatives are freaking out and shitting all over democracy, losing their minds. And get ready for it, because this is going to be a good one, a big one. I've got a clip of Rick Santorum just trashing democracy. I've got two separate elected officials, one from North Dakota, one from Idaho. Oh, direct democracy will kill us all. I've got an idiot from the American Family Association lying about how referendums and ballot measures are bad because the voters are stupid or they're confused or they're tricked and they don't it's just all nonsense. And these are the same people who venerate Thomas Jefferson and his views of anti-federalism, his views that the states, the constitutional republic that they all talk about, as though that's just not another form of democracy. Wait for it. It's going to be great. But first, let's start with human thumb with ears, Rick Santorum.
And you put very sexy things like abortion and marijuana on the ballot, and a lot of young people come out and vote. It was a secret sauce for disaster in Ohio. I don't know what they were thinking, but that's why I thank goodness that most of the states in this country don't allow you to put everything on the ballot, because pure democracies are not the way to run a country.
Pure democracies are not a way to run the country. They hate democracy, Republicans. They hate it. They cannot stand that when you give people a choice to decide, they go against Republicans almost every time. When people understand what is at stake, and they understand the history of our country and where we're headed at the helm, with Republicans at the helm, they decide to go a different direction. The vast majority of Americans support access to abortion, access to people's bodily autonomy, and Republicans don't. And to win, especially on this issue, they have to malign democracy because they know better than you. Rick Santorum knows better than you what policies should be enacted to rule over you. Here's Representative Brandon Pritchard, a Republican, an elected Republican in North Dakota. He said this on Twitter: direct democracy should not exist. Case in point, Ohio legalizing the slaughter of babies. It would be an act of courage to ignore the results of the election and not allow for the murder of Ohio babies. We are probably 10 years away from this opinion being acceptable, though. You think, Brandon Pritchard? So the laws that you enact in North Dakota, you're A-OK with them being ignored for whatever reason. Direct democracy should not exist. Slaughter of babies. The vast, more than 90% of abortions in this country take place in just the very early stages of pregnancy. When it's just a clump of cells, it doesn't resemble anything. And when these idiots talk about a fetal heartbeat, it's not a heartbeat. There is no heart. It is electrical impulses between cells. No one is killing, murdering, slaughtering babies. No one. But direct democracy should not exist. Here's Brandon Durst from my home state of Idaho, an elected official, a school superintendent. The founders, and this will lead me to the Thomas Jefferson quotes, a man I'm sure he admires. The founders never wanted a direct democracy, the license to murder unborn children, not fetuses, not clumps of cells, children, fully formed, self-actualized. Children with agency are being murdered. The license to murder unborn children approved by voters in Ohio is the perfect example as to why the republic is in grave danger, says Brandon Durst. The push towards democracy will be our death knell. They're not even hiding it. The push to democracy will be our death knell. And before I get to the Thomas Jefferson quotes, which are bangers, stick around for them, here's Jamison Taylor, a right-wing nutter butter in Mississippi, talking about the ballot initiatives, the referendums that get put on the ballots in Kansas or wherever. And listen to the disingenuous, lie-fueled tirade that he goes on, that even the most... You don't need a political science degree or advanced degrees based on understanding our history or anything else to understand that what he's saying is absolute anti-democratic garbage. Jamison Taylor.
Once we conservatives won at the Supreme Court and overturned Roe v. Wade, the left really started to look at the ballot initiative process as a way to push a pro-abortion agenda in red states. The first state we saw was Kansas, which is a pretty pro-life state, where the left flooded Kansas with money. They confused voters, and voters voted against really basic pro-life protections. We saw then after that in Kentucky and Michigan and other states that are fairly conservative, pro-life initiatives lost big at the ballot box. Now, why did that happen? It was not because these voters suddenly became pro-abortion. In fact, what is happening is the left is going into red states to go around voters. They're going into red states to go around legislatures. We're talking about states in which, conservatives have worked really hard, for instance, to elect a governor, to elect a Republican House, a Republican Senate. They have the so-called trifecta. They're in a place where they should be able to get a lot done. And what the left is doing is they're going around these legislatures. They're disenfranchising red state voters. They're going around these legislatures and using the ballot initiative process to get what they want.
What? They went around voters. Voters went to the poll en masse and decidedly said, we want to protect abortion access. How did they go around voters when voters went to the polls personally, individually, and voted for the thing? It is such a bizarre, myopic, singular viewpoint. They're so single-minded in their approach to everything that they can't fathom that Americans don't agree with them. Well, why did this happen, he asks. Well, it's not because all these people are in favor of abortion rights. No, it's not that. They're all pro-life. And now let me read you two separate quotes from Thomas Jefferson a complicated man who loved raping his slaves. But they love him. They love him. He is the embodiment of libertarianism. He is the embodiment of states' rights. He is the embodiment of anti-federalism. And in a letter to John Taylor, May 28th, 1816, their golden god said this: "Indeed, it must be acknowledged that the term republic is of very vague application in every language. Witness the self-styled republics of Holland, Switzerland, Genoa, Venice, Poland. Were I to assign to this term a precise and indefinite idea, I would say purely and simply, are you ready for it? I would say purely and simply, it means a government by its citizens in mass, acting directly and personally according to the rules established by the majority, and that every other government is more or less republican in proportion as it has in its composition more or less of this ingredient of the direct action of the citizens." That's gotta just, it's gotta just be a knife in the heart to these people. There's more. This is a letter to William Charles Jarvis. I have no idea who that is, but this is from the National Archives. I got that one from the Library of Congress. Thomas Jefferson, September 28th, 1820. "I know no safe depository of the ultimate powers of the society, but the people themselves. And if we think them not enlightened enough to exercise their control with a wholesome discretion, the remedy is not to take it from them, but to inform their discretion by education. This is the true corrective of abuses of constitutional power." So, Brandon Durst, Brandon Pritchard, Rick Santorum, and every other idiot out there who's wailing about a constitutional republic. We're not a democracy. That's not what our founders said. That's not what our founders intended. You're wrong, and you can't handle it. What do you think out there? I'd love to know. 714-576-4054. Of course, you can email me as always. I welcome them daily. Excuse me, at Dollemore.com. Hey, if you appreciate the time spent, the research done to bring this to you, I would appreciate if you would consider supporting and producing what I do. Click the join button below, become a channel member for $2 a month. You can, even better, go over to patreon.com/IDoubtIt podcast. If you become a patron by the end of the year, you'll get our little end of the year Patreon gift. It's a thank you to our supporters. You can hit the super thanks button. You can buy some merch. Make sure you're subscribed, like, comment, do all the things that YouTubers ask you to do. And follow me on social media. I'm at Dollemore on Twitter, Instagram, Threads, TikTok, Facebook, Blue Sky, all of them. And I'd love to see you there. And I will see you next time. Be genuine. Take care of one another.